lose at home against Shaka by 2-1. For more on this, let's welcome in, shall we? Former US international Kasey Keller is with us. Kasey, your big takeaway from today?
Well, I think there was moments with some of the young players, guys that maybe are in the squad that we didn't expect to be in this squad, and they did well. But I think what do we keep seeing from the U.S. team is making mistakes in situations where they don't need to make mistakes, and gifting opportunities their opponents and throwing things away. And I think that's what we saw again. They had opportunities to get the equalizer. Tillman missed a chance they didn't show on the highlights, the point blank header from 5 yards out and hits it straight at the goalkeeper. So yeah, there was opportunities where this side could find ways to get results. And instead, this side found ways to lose matches. And I think that's one of the biggest disappointments, because there were moments. Great start. I thought they pressed Turkey very well, made things difficult for them. They struggled to get out of the back. But then to give 2 goals away and then not be able to get that equalizer and push on from there, it kind of shows, where this side's at. Zero confidence and zero ability to find ways to get results at the moment.
Ali, you were getting more and more frustrated watching this with us as the game went on.
I'll tell you who had didn't have an opportunity, I should say, is the deer behind Kasey. Zero chance.
Yes, it dropped quick.
Wow. Wow. Oh, no. In any case, all I would say is the United States, they started the game off as well as you could possibly hope for. What was really disappointing was that once they gave up the first goal in the manner in which they did, and that in itself was disappointing, is the reaction or lack thereof from the United States. In fact, they never got a hold of the ball and the remaining of that first half after that goal from Arda Güler. Yes, it's a mistake. Mistakes are going to happen. How do you react from those mistakes? You want to see responses from a younger team. And if you're Pochettino and you're evaluating, you kind of go, I don't know that I have a lot of answers. And the mistakes are not coming from what we consider to be inexperienced players. Johnny Cardoso is a consistent performer for Betis in La Liga. Should not be giving the ball away in that sort of position. Regardless, it happened, and then you started to figure out, okay, who is it that is going to show for the ball? Who is it that is going to give you something building out of the back? Who is it that is going to be an outlet? And a lot of the players, instead of taking on that role, they started to disappear, and that's when Turkey took over. The beginning of the second half was better for the United States, and they did create the chances that Kasey was talking about. But then it's a question of quality in front of goal. Jack McGlynn takes his goal really well. But in the second half, when he drives in top of the 18-yard box, and he is once again looking at goal and saying, okay, I have an opportunity in front of me, he doesn't see the full picture. Because if he had seen the full picture, he would have seen that their defense is closing him down, and that Ageman is open over here on the left-hand side, and that Tillman is open here on the left-hand side. Never got his head up. So then it becomes a question, as I mentioned before, of quality in those sort of moments. Not enough of that from the United States, and overall, not enough to overtake a team like Turkey that wasn't all that great. But when they had their 10, 15 minutes in the first half, they took a full advantage. They put the game away.
What's the biggest concern if you're Pochettino watching this?
I think it's what Ali was talking about, the reaction when things don't go your way. We saw that in the first 15 when things were going their way and everybody was at it and everybody was up for it. Then they looked as though they could produce something. But then Cardoso's mistake, there was no change in trying to defend or get the ball back quicker. When you lose a goal or when the opposition are on top, in my view as a coach, I'll change something or change things on the field for 5 or 10 minutes, bring the wide guys in, get everybody compact, make them go around there, affect the game. And there was nothing. The only reason they got back in the game is because half-time came and they got back in the dressing room. I was disappointed that Pochettino didn't do anything after they lost that first goal to make sure that they didn't lose the second. And then when they lost the second, he didn't do anything to make sure they didn't lose a third. Because as I said, the only reason they got back into it was because half-time came.
Feels like we sit here with the same sort of conversations after most US games at the moment, Shaq.
No question for me. And listen, given the changes that Pochettino's had to deal with, it's not a full-strength squad by any stretch of the imagination. But still, it's the same old conversations. And again, we've been talking for, it feels like 4 or 5 years as to who will lead the line for the US. And Agyemang is not the answer, granted. But Malik Tillman, after coming back from a really bad injury, has been outstanding for PSV over recent months. And there was an expectation that he would be the player playing in that number 10 role that would change things for the US in terms of that attacking thrust from midfield. Kasey mentioned the missed chance from 5 or 6 yards, which really should have done better with. But other than that, I cannot remember hearing Malik Tillman's name all game long. I can't tell you what else he did. Now, for most of these players, they are squad players at best if we are talking about 2026. Malik Tillman was branded, or an expectation or hope was that he would come in and really make the US tick offensively. On today's showing, I'm sorry, I didn't see that evidence. And to be honest, kind of given that form we saw from PSV, I was hugely disappointed.
Who disappointed you today, Kasey?
I guess I was a little disappointed in the fact that they did some things kind of more as a team. I liked the energy. I think Stevie mentioned it there. The first 15 minutes, they pressed. They made things difficult for Turkey to kind of play out of the back and be comfortable. I liked that when they did win possession in midfield, that they were aggressive at running at Turkey's back line. I think in the last few matches we saw situations where everything was very slow and methodical, and this looked like there was a little bit more urgency. And I thought the disappointment, I agree with Shaka. I thought Tillman had opportunities to really express himself. I think Agyemang had opportunities where maybe a touch let him down in the final third. Clearly, I'm disappointed in Johnny Cardoso and to concede the goal the way they did when they were doing as well as they were. Because, when you're in a situation when you have a bunch of young players and you have people who are looking to take advantage of maybe given an opportunity that they didn't feel they or necessarily should have gotten, but because of injuries and because of different situations and players' absence, because of Club World Cup or because of whatever strange reason we seem to be hearing often too much with this national team of why players aren't in, you look at someone like a Cardoso to say, okay, come in and prove that you really belong and that your club form can transition to your national team form. And then to make that kind of mistake and really change the game the way it did from one of the most experienced players on the pitch, that's disappointing.
3 straight defeats now, huh?
Yeah. Beyond the defeats, what would trouble me is that you're looking for answers if you're Pochettino. And you're wanting to have players take a step forward and say, hey, that guy's injured all the time. He doesn't show up to the national team all the time. He wants a break. I'm here. I'll do the job. I'll be the guy. And there have been ample opportunities to do that for a select group of players. And Pochettino has opened sort of the spectrum of the national team to a whole lot, to a bigger number of players. And I think he makes that decision because he's still searching. He's still looking. If you were settled on a group of players, you're not opening the whole spectrum of players to everybody, the whole pool of players for everybody. But it feels like he's saying, I don't think that those guys that are always around have been all that great. To your point, 3 losses in a row, they start piling up. And there's only so much that you can say about, well, this is preparation for this is preparation for that. We're thinking about the World Cup in 2026. This is all part of the growth and the process. And okay, we can talk about the process all we want, but eventually you have to start winning games. Because part of the process, in the end, is that you're going to be defined by winning. Not by how well you did in your preparation against Turkey. You don't win these matches, it starts piling up, and I don't know how much pressure there really is on Mauricio Pochettino and this national team, but you have to see steps forward, and you're not seeing it individually from the players that have been given opportunities, and you're not seeing as a group from now a team that has been together enough time to see what is the impact and the input of Mauricio Pochettino. We're not seeing that just yet.
The team had gone.
In some ways, we've got to give Pochettino a little bit of slack here, because I don't believe that he knows what his 11 is.
He wouldn't have any other slack, though, if he was in charge of Argentina, if he was in charge of England, if he was in charge of Scotland.
But
you lose against Canada, you lose against Panama.
You're sitting here asking Ali, well, he's got to start winning games. He doesn't even have an 11 yet. He doesn't even have an 11.
I said that's 3 defeats in a row.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that because the US is the way that it is, he's not under the same pressure that he would be in pretty much any other country.
What I'm saying is, we don't have 11 players that are good enough, right?
But you want to give him slack.
Well, listen, he doesn't put his boots on and go out and play. You know, and I gave him a little bit of criticism about the first half when they lost the goal. I want to see him doing something. But ultimately, he's got to pick a team that's going to win a game. And he doesn't have 11 players that he can rely on. He doesn't have 11 players that he's probably got 4 players that are guaranteed that are starting. After that, he's like...
But surely as a coach, that's your job, isn't it? To find the starting 11.
Because you can't turn water into wine. Well, you know, if you don't have things at your disposal... If you look at the
starting 11 of Panama, if you look at the starting 11 of Canada... then in theory, the US should have better individual players that as a coach you need to bring together.
But they don't, and that's why I'm saying right now we've got to give him a bit of slack, because he doesn't have an 11. He doesn't have an 11. You go and talk about Canada. I bet you right now, Jesse Marsh knows exactly his starting 11. He knows exactly what he's going to do with them. Every time they come in, he knows what he's going to do in training. He knows what to work on. I don't think Pochettino right now knows 11 players
he has. He's had 9 games, surely, to sort this out.
And he still doesn't know his 11. That tells you what he's got at his disposal.
So you would give a pass to anyone?
I'm not saying I'm giving him a pass.
Well, that's exactly what
I'm
you're
saying I'm giving him a little bit of slack, because in order to get results, you need to have a team that you can put on the field and give them orders to do certain things.
Which is your job to find out which individuals.
But they don't have players capable of doing it.
What, that whole
you don't want to hear it.
So the
you
whole
just don't want to hear it.
All these individuals are outclassed by Panama. They're a better team.
I'm just telling you, they don't. You can talk about what they are on paper all day, but they're not.
But if I'm paying my manager $3 million, $4 million a year, whatever it is, then that is your job to find the 11 individuals that can come together as a team
right.
and put in better performances that we've seen so far.
Right. And what was the first thing I said?
But you're giving him a pass.
What was the first thing I said? He doesn't have an 11 yet.
But that's your job to find the 11.
But that's what he's doing right now. He's trying to find it.
every time.
He's trying to find an 11.
He's failing every time. And if it's any other country...
If they're not good enough, then what's he supposed to do?
But they are good enough, surely.
No, they're not.
Why not?
Have you been watching the US over the last 18 months, 2 years?
But what I don't get is that you're giving him a pass because he hasn't found the players...
I'm giving him some slack because he doesn't have an 11 that he can rely on. And how many players has he tried since he came in? I bet it's a ridiculous amount. And that's why. I'm just telling you right now, they don't have an 11. They can step on the field unless they're playing St. Kitts and Nevis.
That's personal.
When was the last time you stepped on the field and you went, oh, they're definitely going to win?
What it feels like to me is it feels like he's going through these camps like it's the first camp after a World Cup. And 3 of your starters have retired. A couple of them, are going to be too old. You got some young kids coming through, and to Stevie's point, I mean, yes, to both Stevie's point and to your point, Dan, is they should know. He should have a better idea, but he keeps thinking that, oh, this guy's going to come good, or this guy's going to be fit, or let's see what this guy does. Then he drops out of camp, and then this guy puts his hand up and says, no, I want to break this summer. And then he brings some kids in, and then maybe they're not quite there, or maybe they show a little bit in this match, but then don't do anything there. So yeah, it just really feels like a camp that should be 3.5 years before a World Cup, not the summer before a World Cup. And I think that's very worrying that you really don't know what your squad is, who your players are, who are your 2 center back pairings, who's your striker going to be, who's going to show some fight for me, who's going to come into this camp and tell me that I really want to be in this squad. And there is still more questions than answers with this men's national team. And I think, and to your point though, Dan, and by the way, it's $6 million that he's being paid to get this
Sorry, I
right.
thought it was my wage. His wage. I always get those two mixed up.
Yeah, you always get that confused.
I'm sorry, what?
Yeah. So yes, that is the question. There has to be pressure under Pochettino, breaking the bank to be that difference for the national team. And again, like you said, there's still a lot of questions.
Two things from today that are concerning. One, when Pochettino is giving his interview at halftime, he kept mentioning the word emotional, the emotion of this, the emotion of that, the emotion of giving up the goal, the manner in which we did, and not being able to handle the emotions in those 10, 15 minutes after that. Well, you're right there in the sidelines. And if you are so enamored with the idea that, look, it's important to take care of the emotions of this team when things are not going their way, then that is a message that has to be shared with the players. And stop messing with the ball around here when you're not showing in good positions, when now the passing lanes are closing down, because obviously you're not as confident as you were at the beginning of the game. The message from the manager can be just as simple. Hey, you see the big guy over there, that Aguiman guy? Send it over there. Have him hold it up. Allow us to take a step forward. Let us see that there is an adjustment so that you can get through this bad patch of a match, and then you move on. But don't come back after you've already given up 2 goals and say, well, we couldn't handle the emotions. You as a manager should be handling the emotions as well.
And just to chip in, what he's talking about there, playing it forward to Aguiman, and the thing he came out with was to hold it up, and you've got a centre forward that can't hold the ball. Good luck getting out. Good luck changing in it.
Now, on a big picture from today, the second thing that I was going to get to was, while you're still searching for that 11 that you're talking about, Stevie, at some point, I believe that it's fair to demand from this group and Mauricio Pochettino that they should be beating teams like Panama. They should. Regardless of who this mix of players here and there, and take this guy and take that guy, bring this guy in, put that guy over there, put this guy over here. They should be better than Panama. And I agree that right now, Canada seems like on a different level entirely than the United States. But they should be better than where they are right now. And that, I think, is the takeaway, that they seem to be behind the curve, and time keeps going on, and time keeps on ticking, and they can't quite catch up to the curve.
Did you want to add anything, Shaq?
No.
So, Kasey, just one last thing. Looking ahead to the game in Nashville, obviously, against Switzerland on Tuesday, what changes do you make? What would you like to see?
I think it'll look more like what they expect maybe the starting lineup to start the Gold Cup will be. I wouldn't be surprised if Adam starts from the front. I wouldn't be surprised if Matt Turner. I think it'll look like a more, probably the majority of the experience that he has in this camp, I think will start in that match. Just to try to build a little bit of momentum going in there. I think this still has a feel of looking at people. Guys are on trial, still trying to figure out, what that squad is going to look like going forward. But I think what we've also seen, Dan, is we have no idea what this is going to look like, because there has been zero consistency. And people ask me sometimes, just, hey, why is there no consistency? And I think to Stevie's point, there's no consistency because nobody is showing the coaching staff that this is my position, that here's my chance, I'm going to take it. I think Diego Luna was one of the few guys that did that in the last camp, and then didn't necessarily have a type of game today that solidifies that position. So I still think, again, there's still, let's see how this goes. Let's see what this partnership looks like. Let's see what this guy looks like out wide. Let's see what this guy looks like up front. So I still think it's a lot of still trying to play different combinations to see if anything can actually stick.